All right, so today we're going to dive into something pretty cool. We're talking deep learning and how it's shaking up options pricing.
Yeah, you know what's wild about this? We're talking about a market worth trillions of dollars. Getting option pricing right, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And not just for like Wall Street, for everyone.
For sure. This is cutting edge tech, high finance stuff. And I think before we go too deep, we should probably define options just so everyone's on the same page.
Totally. Options, they're basically contracts that give you the right, not the obligation, but the right to buy or sell something like a stock.
Right. And they get to do that at a certain price by a certain date.
Exactly. Think of it like you're placing a bet on where you think a stock price is headed.
It's a huge market. And for a long time, it's been all about the Black-Scholes model. Am I right?
You're right. Black-Scholes, it's a mathematical model, takes into account the current stock price, how long until the option expires, and then there's volatility.
Volatility. So, like, how much the price is swinging around.
Exactly.
So it's kind of trying to predict the future in a way. But, and I guess this goes for any prediction, it's making some assumptions, and those aren't always perfect.
Yeah, and a big criticism of Black-Scholes is that it assumes markets are always rational and predictable. And, well, we know the real world, especially financial markets, they can be anything but.
For sure. So Black-Scholes has some blind spots, and those become really obvious when we talk about illiquid options, the ones that don't trade that often. What makes those so tricky?
It's like, imagine you're trying to sell something super rare, like an antique.
Yeah.
It's hard to put a price on it, right? Because you don't have that many comparable sales to go by.
Hmm.
And that's kind of the situation with illiquid options. There aren't a ton of trades happening, so figuring out their true value is hard. That's where Black-Scholes, with its ideal market assumptions, kind of falls apart. And that's where deep learning comes in.
Deep learning. It seems like this technology is everywhere these days, but for those who maybe haven't wrapped their head around it yet, how does it actually work?
Picture this, a computer program that learns from massive, and I mean massive amounts of data. Kind of like how our brains, identify patterns to make decisions.
Right.
In this case, researchers used a data set of over 12 million options trades. They basically fed it to these deep learning models.
12 million. Wow. That reminds me of how AI for games like chess got so good. They analyzed millions of past games to learn. But instead of chess moves, we're talking financial data.
Exactly. Just like the chess AI learning winning strategies, these models are trying to crack the code of option pricing. And they do it by digging through millions of real-world trades.
Okay, so we've got these powerful deep learning models, tons of data. How do we even start to see if they can beat the old Black-Scholes method?
It's like, those robot competitions where different teams, they bring their creations, see which one comes out on top?
Right, right.
So here, the researchers, they tested 3 different deep learning models, each with its own way of pricing options.
Okay, let's break it down. What was the first model? What made it stand out?
The first one, MLP1, it had a pretty straightforward approach. Use basic option info, similar to Black-Scholes stock price, time until it expires, and that volatility we talked about.
So looking at recent price swings to figure out the risk makes sense. What about the second model? Did it do something different?
MLP2. This one's interesting. Instead of predicting the exact price of the option, just one number, it went for a range.
A range.
Yeah, like a bid-ask spread. Instead of trying to hit the bullseye every time, it figured out where the dart might land within a certain area.
So it's more about how markets actually work. Buyers and sellers, they're always throwing out prices, bids, and asks, so it's more realistic.
Exactly.
Love it. Okay, last contender. This one's got to be good.
This is where it gets really cool.
Yeah.
LSTM. This model, it can analyze data over time, like it learns how patterns unfold.
So instead of just getting that 20-day volatility as a fixed number, it's actually watching how it changes day to day.
Exactly.
Like it's watching a stock's history like a movie, trying to predict the next plot twist.
Great analogy. Okay, so, moment of truth. Who do you think won this whole pricing showdown?
That's tough. Part of me wants to say the LSTM, seems the most advanced. But then MLP2, that range strategy is so smart. Okay, I'm going out on a limb. I think MLP2 pulled off the upset.
You got predicting the bid-ask spread directly. That was the winner. Turns out nailing down one perfect price, even for deep learning, that's hard.
Wow. So MLP2 takes the crown. But how big of a win are we talking? Was it close?
Not even close. It was a landslide. All 3 deep learning models, they crushed Black-Scholes, especially on those illiquid options, the ones Black-Scholes struggles with.
Impressive.
Yeah.
So deep learning is really changing the game here. But let's bring it back to our listeners for a second. Why does this even matter outside of all this, Complex financial modeling.
This isn't just about algorithms getting smarter. Better options pricing, it impacts everyone, not just Wall Street.
Okay, let's unpack that. Why should our listeners care?
One of the big things is risk management. When you understand how prices move, you can manage risk better. And that means a more stable financial system for everyone.
So it's like better shock absorbers for the economy, preventing those big crashes.
That's a good way to put it.
Mm.
And it's not just about preventing the bad stuff. This tech could lead to some very interesting trading strategies. Better analysis, potentially better returns for investors.
Sounds like a financial revolution fueled by deep learning.
It's not far off. And there's more. Remember that LSTM model? The one that tracked how volatility changes.
The one that seemed promising but didn't quite get the win, yeah.
Researchers think, with even more data, it could be the key to unlocking what's called volatility surfaces.
Volatility surfaces, I'm not familiar with that one. What are those?
Imagine like a heat map, but for risk. It shows you which options have high rewards, but also where the bigger risks are. There are tools that, like, pro traders use. If deep learning can create them, it changes how we understand this whole options market.
So we're talking about giving everyone access to these sophisticated tools that were only for the pros.
Exactly. And that leads to some interesting questions, right, about the future of finance and what role technology will play.
So it's like we're leveling the playing field, giving everyone these powerful tools. But like you said, more questions pop up. If deep learning's already this good at pricing options, what's next? What if we gave these models even more data, not just old trades?
Right. What if we start adding things like, I don't know, news sentiment? Like, are people feeling good or bad about a company?
Social media trends.
Yeah. Or even bigger picture stuff, like macroeconomic indicators. Anything that might, move the market.
So these algorithms, they're not just crunching numbers anymore. It's like giving them a sixth sense for the market.
Exactly. And that's where, it gets really interesting, maybe even a little bit unsettling for some.
Right. Like if we keep pushing it, how does that change the whole game of trading and investing?
Totally. I mean, if we can make algorithms that are consistently better than humans, where does that leave, human intuition, expertise?
Big questions, ones we'll need to figure out as this technology keeps evolving.
Absolutely. It's not about replacing humans entirely, right? It's about figuring out how to use both human intelligence and artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Because things are changing fast.
This deep dive has been amazing. We covered so much. Options pricing, deep learning, the future of, well, everything it seems. And every answer just leads to more questions.
That's the best part. Exploring the cutting edge. It's all about discovery.
Couldn't have said it better myself. As always, it's been a pleasure picking your brain about all this. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you on the next one.